With very few exceptions, Somalis are entirely Muslims, the majority belonging the Sunni branch of Islam and the Shafi'i school of Islamic jurisprudence. There are two theories about when Somalis began adopting Islam. One states that Islam probably arrived in Somalia in the 7th century when followers of Muhammad came over to escape persecution from the Quraysh tribe in Mecca. An alternative theory states that Islam was brought to the coastal settlements of Somalia between the 7th and the 10th century by seafaring Arab and Persian merchants. The Sunni Shia splits between Islam occurred before Islam spread among Somalis, and Sunnis constitute the overwhelming majority of contemporary Somalis. Somali Sufi religious orders, Tariqa, the Qaridiyya, the Ahmadiyya, and the Salihiyya, in the form of Muslim brotherhoods, have played a major role in Somali Islam and the modern era history of Somalia. Of the three orders, the less strict Qadiriyya Tariqa is the oldest, and it is the sect to which most Somalis belong. The Qadiriyya order is named after Shahid Muhyiddin Abdul Qadir Hidlani of Baghdad. I.M. Lewis states that Qadiriyya has a high reputation for maintaining a higher standard of Islamic instruction than its rivals. Ahmadiyya and its subsects Salihiyya preaches a puritanical form of Islam and have rejected the popular Sufi practice of tawassul, visiting the tombs of saints to ask mediation. B.J. Martin states that these two orders share some of the behaviors of the Wahhabis of Arabia. The religious difference between Qadiriyya and Salihiyya were controversial, as Salihis continued to opposite the Qadiris' practice of tawassul and claimed the act to be invalid and improper religious activity. The Ahmadiyya has the smallest number of adherents of the three orders. Quranic schools, also known as Duksi, remain the basic system of traditional religious instruction in Somalia. It is delivered in Arabic. They provide Islamic education for children. According to UNIFED, the Duksi system, where the content is based on Quran, teaches the greatest number of students and enjoys high paternal support. Is oftentimes the only system accessible to Somalis in nomadic as compared to urban areas. A study from 1993 found, among other things, that unlike in primary schools where gender disparity is enormous, around 40% of Quranic school pupils are girls, but the teaching staff have minimum or no qualification necessary to ensure intellectual development of children. To address these concerns, the Somali government, on its own part, subsequently established the Ministry of Endowment and Islamic Affairs, under which Quranic education is now regulated. The Somali community has produced important Muslim figures over the centuries, many of whom have significantly shaped the course of Islamic learning and practice in the Horn of Africa and the Muslim world. Although the Research Center has not conducted a survey in Somalia, its Somali majority northwestern neighbor Djibouti reported a crude breakdown of Muslims, which was reported as 77% adhering to Sunnis, 8% as non-denominational Muslim, 2% as Shia, 13% refusing to answer, and a further report inclusive a Somali region stipulating 2% adherence to a minority, Ibadis, Quranis. Somali Sunnis primarily belong to Shafi'i school of the Islamic jurisprudence, or an adherence to the Salafi creed. Sufism, the mystical dimension of Islam, is also well established, with many local Jama'a Sawiya, or congregations of the various Tariqah or Sufi orders. The Constitution of Somalia likewise defines Islam as the religion of the Somali Republic, and Islamic Sharia as the basic source of national legislation. Islam entered the region very early on, as a group of persecuted Muslims had, at Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam urging, sought refuge across the Red Sea in the Horn of Africa. Islam may thus have been introduced into Somalia well before the fight even took root in the place of origin. Although Somali women were initially excluded from the many male-dominated religious orders, the all-female institution, Abai City, was formed in the late 19th century, incorporating Somali tradition and Islam. In addition, the Somali community has produced numerous important Islamic figures over the centuries, many of whom have significantly shaped the course of Muslim learning and practice in the Horn of Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and well beyond. Among these Islamic scholars in the 14th century, Somali theologian and jurist Uthman bin Ali Thailah of Thailand, who brought the single most authoritative text on the Hanafi school of Islam, consisting of 4 volumes known as the Tawayin al-Haqa'ih Sarhand al-Daqa'ih. The important Islamic figures in Somalia: Abdurrahman bin Ismail al-Khayarti, 10th century Islamic leader in northern Somalia. Sheikh Isaac bin Ahmed al-Hassimi, 12th century Islamic leader in the northwestern Somalia area. Yusuf bin Ahmad al-Kahnain, 30th century scholar philosopher and saint, Astaghfirullah, associate with the development of Wada'ah Britain. Abadir Umar Rida, 3rd century Sheikh and patron saint of Harar. Uthman bin Ali Sailahi, 14th century Somali theologian and jurist, who wrote the single most authoritative text on the Hanafi school of Islam, consisting of 4 volumes known as the Tabayin al-Haqa'iq li Sarkah al-Daqa'iq. Sa'id od Mogadishu, 4th century Somali scholar and traveler. His reputation as an scholar earned his audiences with the emirs of Mecca and Medina. He traveled across the Muslim world and visited Bengal and China. Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, 16th century Imam and military leader that led the contest of Abyssinia. Nur ibn Muhayyid, 16th century Somali emir and patron of Harar. Ali al-Jabardi, 16th century Somali scholar and politician in the Mamluk Empire. Hassan al-Jabardi, Somali mathematician, theologian, astronomer, and philosopher, considered one of the great scholars of the 18th century. Abd al-Rahman al-Jabardi, 1753 1825, Somali scholar living in Cairo that recorded the Napoleonic invasion of Egypt. Abd al-Aziz al-Amawi, 1832-1896, 19th century influential Somali diplomat, historian, poet, jurist, and scholar living in the Sultanate of Zanzibar. Sheikh Abd al-Rahman bin Ahmad al-Sailahi, 1820-1882, Somali scholar who played a crucial role in the spread of the Qadiriyah movement in Somalia and East Africa. Sheikh Madar, 1825-1918. Influential 19th and 20th century Qadiriyya leader and founder of the Harkeisa Tariqa. Sa'id Sufi, 1829-1904, 19th century Somali scholar, poet, reformist, and astrologer. Sheikh Ukhvaus al-Warawi, 1847-1909, Somali scholar credited reviving Islam in 9th century East Africa and with followers in Yemen and Indonesia. Muhammad Abdullah Hassan, 1856-1920, Emir of Diriyeh Gurure and the Dervishes. Abdullah al-Qutbi, 1879-1952, Somali polemicist, theologian, and philosopher, best known for his 5-part Al-Mawmu'at al-Mubarakah, The Blessed Collection, published in Cairo. Sheikh Mohammed al-Sulami, 1910-25, Somali scholar and teacher in the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. They influenced many of the prominent Islamic scholars of today.